India will observe 7 days of state mourning for former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, who has died at the age of 92. Singh was one of India's longest-serving prime ministers. He is credited with a program of economic reforms in the 1990s that have since transformed India into a global powerhouse.
Wise, straightforward, and one of India's most distinguished leaders. Just some of the tributes paid to Manmohan Singh following his death, a man from humble beginnings who went on to become a transformative force within Indian politics.
All of us are in mourning. He was a great prime minister who served the nation as prime minister, finance minister. He was somebody who was a visionary, who did a great deal for the country.
Born into a poor family in 1932, Singh won scholarships to study economics at Cambridge and later at Oxford, returning to India as a renowned economist. In 1991, Singh was tapped to become finance minister for the Indian National Congress Party, leaving his indelible mark on the country during a time of economic crisis, with India on the brink of default, instituting reforms that led to India's rise as a major economic power, unexpectedly becoming Prime Minister in 2004.
We will give to the world and to our people a model of economic reforms which adds to processes of development.
Riding a period of growth, Singh's government shared the spoils of India's newfound wealth, introducing policies credited with bringing millions of people out of poverty and raising living standards. Later clinching a landmark deal that allowed peaceful trade in nuclear energy with the United States, an agreement that helped build a strong relationship between Delhi and Washington. But his second term was overshadowed by political wrangling within his own party and several corruption scandals. And after 10 years as Prime Minister, Singh's party crashed to its worst ever result, beaten in 2014 by the Hindu Nationalist Party, led by Narendra Modi in a landslide victory. Manmohan Singh is to be given a state funeral, with the Indian government announcing 7 days of mourning. He is survived by his wife and 3 daughters.
To talk more about Singh's legacy, DW's Shalu Yadav joins us now from our Delhi bureau. Shalu, Singh presided over some massive economic changes in India, as we just saw. Tell us more about this part of his legacy.
Well, Dr. Singh's legacy is really defined by the bold steps he took to open up India's economy to the world, which really gave India a seat at the global high table, Terry. He rose to political prominence in 1991 as a finance minister when India was really on the brink of bankruptcy. And from then, from being a finance minister to later, becoming the prime minister of the country, he took several steps, like he cut back on taxes. He privatized state-run companies and encouraged foreign direct investment in India. And all these steps were really a game changer for the India's economy as it went on to become, the world's one of the world's fastest growing economies in the world. And it really went on to sort of help India in that sense. And this wise approach later then also allowed India to weather the global recession in 2008, and as India was largely unaffected by that mayhem. And even as he did that, remarkably, Terry, he did not forget about the welfare of the poor. He passed the laws that gave the right to work to the poor. He gave free elementary education to all the children in government schools. And these kind of, really small, big steps helped lift millions of people out of poverty. And it also gave birth to the so-called Indian middle class, Terry, that is really instrumental to, India's growth on a global stage. And the other biggest economy that he's remembered for is bringing India out of nuclear isolation, by signing this civil nuclear deal with the US that went on to cement the relationship between the two countries. And mind you, he did so at the cost of losing the majority in his government, because many of the parliamentarians within his party and in the opposition were against the whole idea. But he took the gamble, and he went on for months, to lobby for this deal. And finally, he was able to bring the parliamentarians to his side. So really, a silent crusader, and his legacy is quite remarkable, Terry.
Now, Singh served as Prime Minister of India for a decade. Looking back, Shalu, how is his tenure seen overall?
Well, he was famously called the accidental prime minister because he didn't choose to become one, nor was he elected. He was, in fact, put on the position by Congress leader Sonia Gandhi, who herself turned down the offer to become the prime minister of the country when the party won the election in 2004. So his critics said that he didn't win any elections on his own, and even then he went on to lead the country of 1 billion people. But that said, he earned massive respect over the next 10 years of his tenure as prime minister, for the economic reforms as well as the foreign policy decisions. However, in the second term of his prime ministership, his administration was marred by a number of corruption scandals by some of the ministers in his government, and he took a lot of flack on behalf of those ministers. But he himself was truly respected for his integrity, and he famously said when they lost the election due to all these corruption scandals in 2014, he said, "History will be kinder to me than the contemporary media or, as a matter of fact, the opposition leaders in the parliament." Terry.
Shalu, thank you very much. That was DW's Shalu Yadav in Delhi.
He spent more than 4 decades in public service. Born into a poor family in 1932, he only landed in politics by accident. Manmohan Singh won scholarships to study economics at Cambridge and later at Oxford. By the time he returned to India in the late 60s, he was a renowned economist. He became India's central bank governor and started working with the government. He had no apparent plans to enter the world of politics, but was suddenly tapped to become finance minister in 1991 for the Indian National Congress Party. At the time, India was facing its worst economic crisis and was on the brink of default. He promised reforms that would break with India's Soviet-style, state-directed economy.
We will give to the world and to our people a model of economic reforms which add to processes of development.
Those reforms paved the way for unprecedented growth, brought millions of people out of poverty, and raised the living standards for average Indians. Singh stuck to those policies during his first term as Prime Minister, and even clinched a landmark deal that allowed for peaceful trade in nuclear energy with the United States, which helped build strong relations between Delhi and Washington. But his second term was shadowed by political wrangling within his own party and several corruption scandals. After 10 years in the leading role, his party crashed into its worst ever result. The Hindu Nationalist Party, led by Narendra Modi, won a landslide in 2014. Singh then went on to become a vocal critic of Modi's economic policies. The Indian government has announced 7 days of mourning along with a state funeral for him.
All of us are in mourning. He was a great prime minister who served the nation as prime minister, finance minister. He was somebody who was a visionary, who did a great deal for the country.
Singh is survived by his wife and 3 daughters.